Today, we are diving into a really fascinating case study in teaching. We're going to look at how a simple but crucial rule in algebra can be made totally unforgettable by using a 2,000-year-old story about sharing bread. It's a challenge every single one of us has faced, right? Whether you're a student or a teacher, how do you take a rule, just a bunch of symbols on a page, and make it actually stick in someone's brain? How do you give it real meaning? And that's exactly what we're digging into today. We're going to break down a lesson plan that tackles this very problem by connecting the dots between a fundamental math concept and a story that is, for many people, incredibly familiar. So let's get right to the heart of the problem. Math can feel super abstract, right? It's this world of X's and Y's that seems totally disconnected from our daily lives. The best lessons, though, they build a bridge from that abstract world to something we can actually picture and understand. And our subject today is the distributive property. If you've ever taken pre-algebra, this one will definitely ring a bell. It's basically the rule that tells you how to multiply a number across a group of terms inside parentheses. It is absolutely essential stuff, but boy, it can also be really easy to forget how it works. And this is where things get really interesting. Instead of just throwing a formula on the board, this lesson introduces an analogy, a story that's meant to be a powerful mental shortcut. The whole idea here is to connect the mathematical act of distributing a number to the famous story of distributing loaves of bread. The mental picture is simple, but it's really effective. One person has to give something to every single person in the group. You can't skip anybody. So how does a story about bread actually help you with algebra? Well, the magic is right there in the name of the property itself. Let's take a look at the formal rule. Here's the crucial point. The number on the outside of the parentheses has to be distributed to each and every number on the inside. Just like in the story, right? You can't just give the bread to the first person and call it a day. You have to give it to everyone. That is the connection.
Okay, an analogy is great and all, but it's only useful if it actually works when you're solving problems. So let's see exactly how this lesson applies the story to real math problems.
We're going to start with a pretty straightforward example from the lesson, just using numbers. All right, let's apply this story here. Think of that 2 outside the parentheses as the bread. It has to be given to the first person, the 3, and then it also has to be given to the second person, the 4. You distribute that 2 to both terms inside. Nobody gets left out. And this is where the analogy really shows its power. For so many students, the biggest leap is going from concrete numbers to abstract letters like X and Y. But if you have a strong mental model, that leap suddenly becomes a whole lot smaller. Just look at the structure here. It is identical. On the left, we're distributing the number 2. On the right, we're distributing the variable x. The process, the story, is exactly the same even when we move into pure algebra. So applying the analogy is super simple. The x must be given to y, and it also has to be given to z. You can't skip anyone. The story gives us this great rule of thumb. Just make sure everything inside the parentheses gets a copy of what's outside. So this brings us to the big takeaway. Why is a teaching method like this so effective? Well, it's all about leveraging the power of a narrative to make logic actually stick with you. The strength of this analogy, in particular, is that it isn't just some random story the teacher made up. It's anchored in a well-known text, which, for its intended audience, adds this whole other layer of meaning and memorability. Here is the direct source, quoted right in the lesson plan, and that key verb is right there, distributed. The lesson takes this specific action from a familiar story and maps it directly onto a mathematical action. It's pretty clever. When you break it all down, the method's effectiveness is crystal clear. It turns an abstract rule into the tangible act of handing something out. It creates a mental shortcut using a story students might already know. And I really love this last point from the source material. It frames the property as a matter of fairness, making sure every single term gets its share. And that leaves us with a final thought. This isn't just about math. It's a powerful technique for explaining things in any field. So, what complex idea do you know that could be made unforgettable with a simple, familiar story?